You better run the 54. You still coming up there too. You gonna get this work. Regular, no power, man. Say what, P? Mediocre. You say mediocre, man. That's mediocre, man. Regular, no power, bro. Even if he get him out at this point, he regular. He regular, bro. Is this your king? Is this your king? Is this your king? The fuck out of here. Y'all will give me my respect. I pointed this out before this fight ever fucking happened. I told you, the nigga regular, it's just extreme, beautiful matchmaking. Now y'all seeing the real. The nigga is a regular fucking fighter. I don't look so crazy now, huh? Y'all doing all right out there? Everybody okay? You know, some of y'all motherfuckers on suicide watch. Y'all like, hey, y'all can't talk that shit to me no more now. Bro, I'm betting on the knockout. That nigga going to sleep. He can't with us, bro.
He said, mediocre. Brian Norman Jr. is, or actually his dad, Brian Norman Sr., he's talking his ish after Boots Ennis' performance last night. And I got to be real. I knew this was coming. I knew this moment was coming because I'm the all-knowing, almighty boxing ego, the best in the business, and it's not even close. Now, you've seen the clip at the beginning. Brian Norman Sr., he's talking about Jaron, Boots Ennis, and he's saying all the things that a lot of fans are saying. He said, I try to tell y'all, I don't look so crazy now with my assessment. And I got to be real, whether you liked his approach just now on that video or not, he has actually earned a right because he did call some of these things that were evident before the fight. So let's be real. In this boxing game, there's a lot of bad actors and low quality content. Bad, cheap videos, cheaply made. The visuals look bad. The audio sounds bad. The information is bad. Bad, bad, bad. Not bad meaning good, but bad meaning bad, right? You guys see it. It's like a cesspool of clickbait, you know, things that are really irrelevant, but let's sensationalize the title. So you got to be careful where you get your boxing information from. And there's a lot of people in this new generation, especially, that they hoist up and prop up fighters and say, this guy is the next person. This guy's unbeatable. This guy can't be beat. And they end up losing. You know, Khalil Cole was one of those names that a lot of you guys were getting behind, saying he was next up, and he just got stopped and dropped 3 times. And it's not saying you're a bad fighter, but you guys are just so quick to anoint people as like the next Marvin Hagler, next Floyd Mayweather, and they haven't earned that. They haven't proven that. And I have been a big fan of Boots. Like, I like what he brings to the table, and I have always enjoyed the way he fights. However, since becoming a champion, and I did a full-length post-fight breakdown, it's 30 minutes. I'm not just crunching out a bunch of videos. Listen, the video is 30 minutes long. I could make 31-minute videos if that's what y'all want, but I feel like y'all want that real. Y'all want that real dialogue, and, you know, let's bring them real conversations back to boxing. So in that video, I break it down. I'll put a card at the end of this video. The bottom line is Jaron, he didn't look that sweet to me. He didn't look very sharp. Post-fight, he didn't sound confident. Like, you know when you've done a good job. Like me, I'm a highly, highly competitive individual, and I know what I'm good at, and I know what I'm not good at. The things that I'm good at, you know, I know what it is. And you're not going to hear a lack of confidence for things that I've been doing my whole life, and I continue to learn and evolve and grow. Boots' post-fight interview sound like almost deflated or defeated, as if he lost the fight, but he really won. That's not a good sign. So when we're hearing Brian Norman, again, some people are going to be like, oh, you turned down $1.7 million and all this goofy stuff. The bottom line is he's, in essence, essentially earned the right to, you know, have his fun and trash talk, because that performance from Boots wasn't like a legendary performance. Couple things here. One, you had already fought this guy in Karen Chukhadzhian, right? You already had experience with him. And you look at known greats like Floyd Mayweather, he does better in the rematch. And it looks like there was no reason to even rematch when you see the second fight, Castillo, Maidana, right? You look at Andre Ward, another fighter who retired undefeated. He had the Kovalev fight, got dropped, didn't get dropped in the second fight, came back all the way correct. He said he had lingering knee issues. And in the second fight, he ended up stopping Kovalev, who had never been stopped before. That's greatness. That's elite, because Ward heard all the criticism, locked in, and he cleaned up his work to the point where the people making excuses sounded dumb. Oh, Kovalev wasn't ready, and they had to revert back to the first fight. You look at Jermell Charlo. He had the tough first fight with Brian Castano. Very tough fight. Some say it could have went either way. Immediate rematch. He was injured, but he rematched Brian Castano, and he stopped him in the rematch. Same thing with Tony Harrison. Jermell Charlo, actually, that's the fight where he was injured. He was injured, and then he tried to do an immediate rematch. Tony Harrison got injured, and then they did the rematch right after, and he stops Tony Harrison in the rematch, and I was there for that. That's how you clean up your work. Boots Ennis is big for welterweight, fought the same guy, and if anything, Karen impressed people because they gave him no credit. They thought it was going to look like the first fight, and then he ends up having a much better showing, even in a loss, which is possible, and people expected more. Boots was saying he's going to knock out Karen, right? As far as I know, I didn't hear Karen say I'm going to knock out Boots. So you got to give credit where credit's due. Karen showed up. He had a completely different fight from the first fight, and he just looked sharper. So when you hear him, Brian Norman, he's like, I try to tell y'all built this man up as Superman, like my son is just like a crumb and Boots would step on him. But I told you, the great thing about the sweet science in boxing is when you see performances like Boots has been giving in his last two fights with Eddie Hearn, you have to kind of recalibrate and reimagine your prior preconceived notions about a fighter. That's the way it works, right? If you think a fighter's invincible and then you see vulnerabilities, you got to recalibrate because you'll look stupid. No, he's still invincible, right? And there's a lot of fighters, Abdullah Mason and Floyd Schofield, Jaron Ennis, right, where these fighters have had these great like hypes and hype train surrounding their name. And then in their last fight, you've seen vulnerabilities. You've seen like, okay, there's a human side to this. Boots was getting hit way too much. And it makes you think some of the more incredulous punchers at 47 or 54, like Ken Boots, he was getting clipped with a Karen Chukhadzhian left hook. The left was landing at will multiple times throughout the fight. Can he take Bakram Murtazayev, aka Murder Zylev? Can he take punches from him flush on the chin like Karen was hitting him with? Because Tim Tszyu was getting battered in the first two rounds, and Bakram Murtazayev had one hand, his right hand was messed up. So he was a one-handed fighter and did all that to Tim Tszyu, who is a respected guy that had never been stopped at 54. And he always looked pretty put together. And then when Tim Tszyu was getting starched, he looked bewildered, like, whoa, where is this coming from? Same thing with Israel Madrimov. Madrimov went toe-to-toe with Terrence Crawford, and both had moments. So I feel like the Boots that showed up versus Karen, you're not beating these guys, or you're going to look a lot more vulnerable in doing that unless you clean up your work. So I got to give credit to Brian Norman. You guys could keep talking about failed negotiations, but Brian Norman Sr.'s earned the right to gloat a little bit, because he was the one saying, Boots, you guys are acting like Boots is Superman, and I've seen him, and I think my son can beat him, blah, blah, blah. And he also, one of the big things that Brian Norman Sr. said, this is before the Karen rematch. Mind you, everybody expected the Karen rematch to look like the first fight, right? where Boots just wins every round, and that's not what happened. So that's why people are coming out the woodwork and, you know, stating their opinion on Boots. But what Brian Norman Sr. said before the fight is that Boots's power is not what you guys think. He said he's a good athletic fighter, but this crunching power that you guys think he has, he said, my son fight the same guy and knocked him like out, and it took Boots several rounds with the same guy before my son. And he's like, Boots's power is not what you guys think. Now, you got to kind of look at that. What Brian Norman Sr. said, people previously said he was hating, but now when I'm looking at Boots' last 2 fights, you're not even at the top 5 of the division. No one thought Karen or David Avocado was top anything at the welterweight division in this current point in time, and they were taking your shots for a minute. Now, you still got the stoppage with David Avocado, but he, like, his team or whatever, he retired in the corner. It's not what Crawford did. Crawford iced David Avocado to the point where he's just looking like a chalk outline. Boots didn't do all that. Same thing with Karen. Boots was landing some nasty stuff on Karen, and Karen was forced to take a knee round 5, but he didn't, like, close the show. And his dad kept saying, oh, man, what are you doing? He's slow. Get him out of here. Knock him out. Knock him out. And Boots literally couldn't do it. Now, some people will say, oh, it's just because Karen's so dynamic. But mind you, Karen's not the best in the division, and he's dang sure not comparable to the best at 154. So Boots talking about moving up to 54 with no tune-ups and fighting Virgil Ortiz. And, you know, I told you, Bakrum's up there. He's a champion. Madrimov, former champion, Crawford. These are all highly dangerous fights, just being realistic from looking at both of his fights with Errol Spence. It's not saying Boots is a bad fighter now, but vulnerabilities and the armor is not looking impenetrable at the moment, you know? So he has to get back to the basics. I don't know if he made some more money and he's feeling himself, but I don't know. I can't really tell you what it is, weight drain or whatever, but he was getting hit flush like you see in this picture. And again, props to Karen, but he's not like a world beater. Like, nobody wanted to see Crawford versus Karen or Errol Spence. So it's not like this long-standing Maidana type. Because, like, Maidana is one of those fixtures when he was in his prime at 47 where you knew Maidana was a major player when Floyd fought him. He had just beaten Broner, etc. Nobody's looking at Karen as like this Maidana of the division where it's like, oh, stay away from that guy. And Karen really, even in loss, gave him all he can handle. The Eddie Hearn curse continues. So this is why Brian Norman talking his talk. It is.